All right, now we'll go ahead and open the meeting. Board of Zoning Appeals, City of Westminster, virtual meeting, August 3rd, 2021, called to order. First order of business is approval of minutes of the preceding meeting. Meeting summary was sent out to everybody, dated July 6th. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve it. Ed.
A second.
I will. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
so approved. Before we go any further, I'd like to make introductions. Start with the board and then include city staff. I'm Ed Kramer, Chair.
I'm Larry Brent, Vice Chair.
I'm Brenda Frazier, board member.
And Ms. Ruff
Karen Ruff, Board Attorney.
and city staff.
Andrew Gray, City Planner.
Mark Depot, the Director of Community Planning and Development.
And who do we have representing the first application?
Mr. Chair, if I may, case number 2104, the applicant, Ms. Boosie, decided to withdraw their application. The withdrawal letter was posted on the website on Friday. So with that being the case, the next case would be case number 2105, and Mr. Rod Howell is joining us by phone.
All right, before we proceed with 2105, I think we have a little bit of house cleaning to do here on 21-04 to make sure we enter into the record the appropriate documents. Inasmuch as the last meeting wound up with a continuance of 2104 and 2105 based on Planning and Zoning Commission review, that was conducted and subsequently returned with two city staff memos, one dated July 6th, request for continuance to August 3rd, and referenced the Planning and Zoning Commission has not been able to have an opportunity to issue a report and recommendation for these two cases. And I'm presuming, and I think it should have stated 21-04, 21-05. So I think to correct or make the record correct, we should identify those unless this is sufficient by audio that references 2104 and 2105, and the city memo dated July 6th to validate that. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. The memo was the Planning and Zoning Commission decided not to make a report and recommendation for BZA cases 2104, 2105, and 2106.
Yes, that was the next thing I was going to cover. So we also have a city memo dated July 30th, subject Planning and Zoning Commission report and recommendations, bottom line of which is that the commission reviewed 2104, 05, and 06 at its July 15th meeting. The memo says August 15th meeting, so I think that needs to be annotated. The commission unanimously voted to not make a recommendation to the BZA for those cases, 04, 05, and 06, just to make sure we have those on the record as stated. And then, of course, the withdrawal letter that was submitted to withdraw case 21-04. I think we should enter that into the record as well. The board okay or have any discussion on that?
None for me.
None from either.
Okay. I think Maybe I'll ask Ms. Ruff if there's anything else we need to do to make sure we're clear on case 21-04 at this point.
No, Mr. Chair, I think you're correct. Given that the board had continued the case, I think it's important that the July 30, 2021 memorandum be part of that case. And with respect to the letter requesting that the 2104 application be withdrawn, I would suggest that the chair request a motion to accept that letter, and then you have that matter closed and you can move on to 2105.
Okay, so just to make sure then, the board clear and the staff okay with admission of that, acceptance of that letter?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so do we actually need to vote that, Karen?
Yes, I would have, just like any other motion, I'd have it moved, made second, and then vote on that.
So
Then
moved.
I would make that motion as stated, that those be accepted into the record, and Larry just seconded.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so
Mr.
is there any
Chair,
other discussion before we move forward?
if I may,
Yes, Mr. Gray.
I am not sure if this is a question for you or probably Ms. Ruff. Would it matter for the record if they were classified in the meeting as either Exhibit 1 and 2, or which one would be Exhibit 1 and which one would be Exhibit 2, if they would be exhibits in the record?
I would mark them as exhibits in the record so that we can keep track of them.
Okay,
We took them in order of the July 30th memo, and then we talked about the letter requesting the withdrawal. So I would make, even though the dates aren't right in order, I would still make the memo, the Exhibit 1 with the withdrawal letter Exhibit 2.
will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So we'll move to case number 21-05, which is all continuance, but I'll read the case notation to start with. An application by Whitney Adderholt and Alan M. Smith of Conewago Contractors Incorporated, the property owner, requesting approval of a special exception to operate a telecommunications facilities subject to requirements of 164-139.1, use pursuant to zoning ordinance Article 12, planned industrial zones, section 164-166.1 alpha, to be located at 1221 Independence Way in Westminster, Maryland. As we begin this case, I think, again, back to the record whereby the Planning and Zoning Commission did a review and did not offer a recommendation in regard to that case as well. Is the applicant ready to proceed? And because I asked that question, because it seems the applicant chose to make a very abbreviated pre-hearing statement, not in the normal format of answering all the criteria that would be required. Does the board have any comments to make in that regard in terms of accepting this case as complete? And I would also, well, let me just stop there for a moment.
Excuse me. Yeah, I have kind of a threshold question here on this whole case. It's not in the record yet, but the staff report will be has been sent to us. And before we go ahead with any testimony, my question is this: the staff was kind enough to give us a copy of a case 15-01, which was a previous case of the Board of Appeals, which was on this same property. I assume it's by the previous owners. But in our order, there was a condition that there be buffering plants and whatever bushes.
Landscape.
And that has not been done. And I guess my question is, why are we here? Because this, give me a second, Andrew, because this is a situation where property owners, the previous ones and this one, I guess, have had 5.5 years to comply with our order and its condition, and they haven't complied. So I'm just wondering why we're going forward with this hearing when they haven't complied with the previous order. Andrew?
If I may, today the applicant confirmed via email and via a phone conversation that the American holly trees were replanted pursuant to the landscape plan for Towercom, which is county file number S1527. And that was approved in November of 2016. But I do have photographs that those were planted.
Okay, so the photographs that you sent us are out of date?
Correct, because those photographs were sent today that had
Okay.
the plantings along the fence.
Okay,
Is it possible that we can see them because the condition was to a certain height, if I recall correctly?
Yes, let me pull that up from my email. Hold on one second.
May I ask, Chair, when they were planted? Do we know that?
Yeah, Andrew, you're going to have to answer that.
I am not certain. Maybe Mr. Howell will know. He is on the call.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I got notified on July 28th that the additional ones have been planted at 5 feet and will grow up to 8 to 9 feet.
I'm having trouble with the volume. I could barely hear you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, sir, is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, the landlord notified me on Wednesday, the 28th, that the additional plantings were taken care of and all the dead ones were taken out. So they planted 21 new trees, American hollies, at 5 feet, and they will grow up to 8 or 9 feet. And there's 21 new ones, and the other 5 were survived for a total of 26 for the original approval.
this isn't particularly much buffering here. I mean, if this is it. Let me ask you this, Andrew, is that acceptable to the city that they've complied with the condition?
Oh, okay, I'm back. Right now, it looks like those were just planted. And hold on one second. Let me go back to, sorry, I'm juggling. Let
All
me
right, take
stop
your time.
share and head back to the memo. Oops, wrong memo. Right. A mature height of 8 feet for the entire perimeter of, so there was a condition the board voted unanimously to approve the application with the condition of a landscape buffer with a mature height of 8 feet for the entire perimeter of the chain link fencing. If it meets, it looks like if those trees will reach a mature height of 8 feet and they do comply with the Board of Zoning Appeals decision and what Planning and Zoning Commission subsequently approved back in 2016, then I would see no reason why that would not comply.
And you're satisfied that this was done 5.5 years later from the order,
Well, and
that they've complied with it?
from what I have heard from Mr. Howell, that the trees were planted. They many of them died. I think 5 of them were still there because they didn't die. 5 of them remained, and then they planted the rest of them with the same species and the same number as what was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I guess, I mean, right now they replanted it and it meets what was approved. I mean, it's up, I guess, up to the board to decide right now if that's what, after these many years, what they would like to see going forward with this case.
Larry, you have further comment?
Well, I guess technically they're in compliance as of July 26th, whatever it was. I'm not very happy with the way it was done, but if the city tells us that it meets the criteria of the order and its condition, I guess I have no choice but to accept it, but I'm not happy.
Brenda, you have any comments?
No, I'm fine to move forward.
I guess before, technically, we are discussing, do have people representing the applicant. I would like to swear you both at the same time. If I could see you and raise your hand, please. Let me swear you in because I do have a question as well. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth?
And Mr. Chair, it looks
Did we
like
lose them?
a phone popped back in, somebody with the phone number popped back in and they were on mute.
It's Mr. Hollowell again. I apologize.
So has he been sworn in?
It's freezing again.
I have not.
When we get the chair back, we ought to have him sworn in.
Can Larry do it in the meantime?
I'm glad to do it if council agrees. We still need the chairman here, I guess, to begin the testimony.
Right. And I think you only take over when he's not here, and he's sort of kind of here.
Sorta. Ed, are you still here? Wave your hand.
I'm going to try to call him.
So we lost him. I'm not sure. I just see an 800 number for else. Where are we? Does anybody know?
Hey,
Andrew,
Ed,
are you there?
Yes, we're here. You were frozen.
Hello?
Ed, can you hear me? Ed?
Ed,
Or
are
Chair
you there?
Kramer?
I can neither see nor hear anyone at this point.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
No, it's technical problem. Can anyone hear me?
Yes,
Everybody can hear you.
we can hear you.
Andrew, is the message function enabled that you could message Mr. Kramer?
It is, but I got his phone number right here and I'm about to call him.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Can you hear us?
I can, if anybody's speaking, I cannot hear anyone or see anyone. Everybody's muted, most everybody.
Can you hear me?
Please leave your name and a message. You may start your message now. Press.
Hey, Ed, I'm gonna put you on. Can you mute your audio?
Okay,
The mute on the computer. Unmute myself and maybe we can go with you on my speakerphone. All right.
Everybody looks like they're muted, but can they hear me?
Yes.
They
Yes,
can.
Larry?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to presume everybody else can hear me at this point. I'm not seeing anybody on my screen for some reason.
Excuse me.
I don't know why I can't see everything.
Ask him to double check that his video is on his computer.
That's fine. It's showing fine for me. Oh, well, as long as we can hear each other, I guess, at this point. So back to where we were, whoever was answering, Scott, was that you trying to, I was trying to get both of you sworn if you're both going to testify. Hello?
Rod and Scott? The
Yes,
chair.
Rod's right here.
Yep, the chair is going to swear you in again.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth?
Correct.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that both of you? I can't tell because I can't see you.
I think it was both of them.
All right, thank you. The question I have is, when were these trees originally planted then?
The latest tree, sir?
When were the trees planted?
I was notified on July 28th that 21 new trees were planted.
So just recently, you're talking about this just a few, really literally a few days ago.
Yes, sir. I was notified on the 28th. It may have occurred a few business days before, but that's when I was notified.
Was that an acknowledgement of you all seeing the staff summary, the staff report that indicated that that was still an open condition?
I let the property owner aware that I had a feeling before any motion or anything continued that they would need to review their previous approval to make sure the buffering was in place. They then took action, and I was notified on the 28th of such.
Okay. Well, from my position, given the position of other board members and city staff, while I'm not happy, as Mr. Variance, I think it should have been done a long time ago. I think we'll just go ahead and move forward. I have a question about the submission that you gave us, not really meeting the requirements of a pre-hearing statement and indicating there would be no presentation required. I mean, you do understand that you need to go through all the criteria for the special exception. And basically, that testimony on the record, together with what you submitted, is what puts us in a position to be able to make a decision here. So I guess my question is, why didn't you make a more complete pre-hearing statement?
And my apologies, sir. The applicant, Mr. Adderholt, she had left the project. So, sir, I am picking up from where she applied for it. And I do apologize for the lack of narrative that she submitted. When it did come to me to address everything, I did the best I could. And in my mind, I tried to leave it as basic as possible due to all the steel being existing. And my customer, Dish Wireless, would simply just like to install on the existing infrastructure, not expand the height of the structure or by any means expand anything on the compound on the ground. So I do apologize for Ms. Adderholt's oversight on that, and I do apologize sincerely.
Other board members content with that explanation?
Not entirely. I mean, they've had plenty of opportunity, and I'm sure they've been in touch with the staff of the city. Andrew, have you had any discussions with the applicant on this issue?
The day after the Board of Zoning Appeals, the past hearing, I emailed both applicants for 2104 and 2105 about how the board wished to have more of a complete statement going forward, just as the board instructed last month.
And did they comply with it to your satisfaction?
There was no other correspondence from the applicants about this.
Sure, you have any comment?
Yes, Mike. Go ahead, Larry.
No, you first. I've been talking too much.
No, that's all right. Is it something that I mean, if he did just pick this up, do we want to give them the opportunity to take it back and actually complete a pre-hearing statement properly in order for us to hear it at a later date?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
The board has that capability to, in the absence of a complete hearing statement, to go for another continuance. Do I have a motion to move in that direction?
So moved. We postpone this case at continuance again for 30 days to allow the applicant to submit a more complete statement for the case.
May I interrupt? I'm sorry, this is Karen. Instead of saying 30 days, could we say, just in case it's not exactly 30 days till your next meeting, could we say at the September, and then I'd have to pull up the calendar.
7.
That's fine.
September 7th.
Just at the next scheduled board meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Because if you announce the date and time now, then you don't have to worry about the notice requirements.
Yeah, gotcha.
Then I would second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we unanimously approved to the applicant. Then what we're telling you is we're going to continue your case until the next board meeting, which typically will occur on the first Tuesday of the month. And I don't think that went into a Labor Day problem this year. That Andrew will confirm that. And I would suggest to the applicant that you use the city staff report, criteria by criteria, in terms of submitting a complete hearing statement. And at that point, I will be in much better shape to make a decision.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir.
Sorry you ran into a problem that you did. We don't need to be bureaucratic here, but if we have a process that everyone needs to follow, and it's best for everyone to do that.
Mr. Chair.
100% understand.
Mr.
Can't
Chair.
see you, Andrew.
Oh, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes, Mr. Gray.
just to be clear, that would be September 7th at 6 p.m. for the continuance.
September 7th. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then I guess at this point we are complete with case 21-05.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask one more question. Will it be virtual? Do we know, will we continue to be virtual, or are you going to be in person at that point? Because you had mentioned earlier that maybe.
Mhm. And Mr. Depot, would you want this to be virtual or in person next month?
It's a tough question. We have a space in the basement of the new building, but we have no camera or video equipment or audio equipment to record the meeting. We could possibly have it in a conference room where we do have, general ability to do audio and possibly video, but it's not a large space. So we're still trying to determine how to operate in the conference room and if it's adequate space to hold the meeting. So we're still trying to figure that out.
So then should we plan on having it virtual at this point?
I believe so.
Okay.
It's probably the safer bet at this stage.
And the one function that we do have the capability in this conference room to do both Zoom and live. So the Board of Zoning Appeals could certainly be live while applicants on Zoom or live. So again, I don't want to rule that out for next meeting. But we still have that capability of having virtual component to the meeting.
Okay, sounds good to me. So at this point, there'll most likely be a virtual meeting, but consistent with city's ability to do something different, then you'll notify all parties. Correct?
Correct.
Yes, correct.
Okay, any other business on 21-05 before we close?
None for me.
We'll close 21-05. Do we need to take a short break here to get things in place for 2106?
I don't need a short break, Mr. Chair. I don't want to speak for anyone else.
Anyone else need a break?
We're ready to proceed.
I'm okay.
Good. So we'll move on to case 21-06, an application by Tri-County Roofing and Sheet Metal Incorporated and K&T LLC, the property owner, requesting approval of a special exception to operate a building materials sales and storage yard, which are enclosed use pursuant to zoning ordinance Article 10 IR restricted industrial zone, section 164-54 alpha, and a special exception to operate a contractor's equipment and storage yard use pursuant to Article 10 IR restricted industrial zone, section 164-54 Charlie, and a variance to section 164-58 to allow the special exception use to be located 84 feet from a lot in a residential zone to be located at 45 Magna Way in Westminster, Maryland. As we get into this particular case, with a separate issuance, a memo from the city staff, subject on July 30th, dated July 30th, subject case number 21-06, supplemental report, wherein it's indicated that at the time that notice was made on case 21-06, the required notice was not completed. Subsequent to that, the required notice on July 11th was put out. So at this point, it seems to me that should be part of to indicate that proper notice was given for 21-06. The Planning and Zoning Commission review on 7/15 did not include required notices. So this satisfies that requirement as I understand it. Does staff have any comment about that at this point, since that was what you put in the memo?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if you would like, with this, I can give a brief presentation.
All right, go ahead.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For case 2106, the applicant is requesting approval of a special exception to operate a building materials sales and storage yard, which are enclosed use pursuant to zoning ordinance Article 10, restricted industrial zone, and a special exception to operate a contractor's equipment and storage yards use pursuant to Article 10, and also a variance to section 164-58 to allow the special exception use to be located 84 feet from a lot in a residential zone, and this is to be located at 45 Magna Way. The applicant, and let me go through. All right. The property is located on Magna Way in the IR Restricted Industrial District, which is the north end of the city by the airport. The site development plan TO6046S expert tree and stump removal was approved on October 3rd, 2007. And due to property verification request by the applicant submitted to the city staff on March 9th, 2021, it was discovered that the necessary special exception approvals for the site plan did not occur. The applicant is essentially requesting the board to make an already approved and operating business legal under the city zoning ordinance. The applicant, for outstanding issues, the applicant should discuss any noise pollution that may be associated with this use in relation to the existing residential properties located across Old Bachman Valley Road in unincorporated Carroll County. The contractor, just a side note, the contractor's equipment and storage yards use is subject to be located 3 times the distance requirement of 100 feet as stipulated in section 164-140, which distance would be 300 feet. And to wrap it up, the recommendation, the zoning administration recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals carefully review the special exception and variance request and approve the applicant's request. Mr. Board, if I may, I would like to submit the application in as Exhibit 1 and the staff report in as Exhibit 2. And if it would also be all right to accept the supplemental memo with the legal advertising as Exhibit 3.
I'm okay with that. The other board members okay?
May I also add, wouldn't your July 30th memo be another exhibit to that case since it's referenced in there as well?
Yes, Ms. Ruff, for the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation.
Right. Approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the applicant and their representative, Mr. Scott Briza, is here to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Briza, let me go ahead and swear you, please.
Yes, sir.
Please. Penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dick. Yeah, yours to proceed.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention. And Mr. Gray, thank you for the very detailed introduction. You've largely done my job for me, so thank you. I'm here to represent Tri-County Roofing and Sheet Metal, Inc. and K&T LLC. K&T is the owner of the property and Tri-County is the operator at the property. Tri-County is a second generation owned company specializing in commercial roof fabrication and installation. They've been in business since 1995. They've been operating at this site for the past 11 years under the belief that they had all the proper approvals to operate at this site. As Mr. Gray stated, it was recently discovered that either the approvals were lost or they were never obtained. Unfortunately, my client's records were destroyed in a flood several years ago, so they don't have any of their original paperwork or approvals. So we are seeking the 2 special exceptions and the variance as stated. I have the founder of the company and his son, who is now the owner operator of the business, here to testify, along with Rick Stouffer of NTT Associates, who is our surveyor who prepared the plat and is prepared to testify as to the distances and the photographs that we've previously submitted with our petition. I'll proffer that the Dreyers will both testify as to the quality of the operation, the details of their use, and the fact that they produce nominal noise, dust, or anything that emits beyond the boundaries of their property. And they'll also testify as to the fact that it has been landscaped and screened per the original construction plans to shield the neighboring residential properties. We also have a statement from one of the neighboring properties that supports the application and indicates that there's no noise or dust or odors that emanate from the property. And they're
At that point, when you're ready to call your witnesses, I will swear them all at the same time.
excellent. It would be Michael Dreyer, Kyle Dreyer, and Rick Stouffer.
Okay? When you're ready, when you're ready to call for their testimony.
Yes, if we could go ahead, that would be great.
Okay? If I can't see you, I'll trust you have your hand up. And do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth?
Yes.
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 Did I hear 3 yeses? I think I did.
You did.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
As my first witness, I'd like to call Michael Dreyer.
Good evening, everyone.
Mr. Dreyer, are you the founder of Tri-County Roofing and Sheet Metal?
Yes, I am.
And how long were you the operator of that business?
26 years. I started the business back in 1995.
And you have been operating at this location for the past 11 years?
Yes, 2010. Yes.
And give me a brief overview of what your company does.
Okay. Well, like I said, we started back in 1995. We were actually over on West George Street renting. And I was looking for a piece of property somewhere outside of the city limits. We needed more room and just wanted to be out more in the country than in the city there. And of course, owning is better than renting. We are a commercial roofing company. We shut down our residential 4 years ago. The commercial business is more of our niche anyway. We sub out all of our production. So our in-house is mainly our 4 service teams. So really we have 8 field men that 2-man crews that do our service work. Again, like you just said, we don't really make anything here. All of our product is shipped directly to the jobs. The only time we have material here is when material is left over at a job because you got a couple extra rolls of material or insulation. We bring it back here because actually our vendors, they don't appreciate bringing back a few pieces of this or that because they'll be, broken bundles. But anything that we usually have outside, usually we put on the next job. So it's here for a very short while, goes back out. That's basically it. All our roofing products are made by a manufacturer that we order from a vendor. One of our big vendors, Beacon, is right next to 84 Lumber. I'm sure everybody up here has been by there. That's a lot of where we get a lot of our material from. But again, most of our big jobs, it's shipped direct.
So it's safe to say you don't do significant fabrication on site?
No, there's nothing here to fabricate except for our sheet metal shop. If that comes in as flat stock, it gets bent for the job and sent right out. There's never any need to make materials that we don't need for a job. So that material just comes in again as raw material. We bend it on our brake. This brake is fully electric, so there's no smoke or dust or anything. It just like you see on a job site, and actually it's better. It's an auto brake, so it's computerized. It bends the metal very quickly. It gets shipped out to the job, and that's it. So there's nothing that really sits inside of here except for that piece of equipment.
Understood. How many employees do you have working at the operation?
Since I stepped out, now I'm just a consultant, so I'm an employed guy, but I'm still here to help my son. We have 17 on payroll.
And those are all, they all live locally?
Everybody here now is pretty,
Yes, yeah, we mainly, since the beginning, are from Carroll County originally, so we try to keep everything sort of, local for the most part. We give everybody an opportunity that walks through the door, so, majority of our employees are locally hired.
yeah. Our furthest one, I think, is Littlestown,
Yes.
and that's actually right up the road. Mount Airy, Littlestown, but everybody else is pretty much Westminster. I actually live across the Maryland line in PA over in Glenville. So yeah, everybody's pretty much local here.
Excellent. And you indicated you now are a consultant for the company.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you sold it to your son Kyle, who's sitting to your, I guess your left, our right.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Back in about March, end of March, 1st of April, after first quarter.
Does the board have questions for Michael Dreyer?
I do not.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Dreyer. Now I'd like to call Kyle Dreyer.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dreyer, how long have you worked at Tri-County Roofing?
I think so. I believe I started back, I was young, 14, 15 years old, left for a couple years. I left to join the Marine Corps, and then I came back in 2012, and I've been here ever since. I guess learning everything I can until this year when he offered to sell me the business. So, several years now. It's hard to believe.
So you're now the owner and operator of the business?
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about the property. It's approximately 2 acres, correct?
Yes.
And you do roofing sales and coordination of installation out of the facilities?
Yes, sir.
You have a building on site and you also have the contractor's yard in the rear, correct?
Yes.
And what occurs in the building?
So I guess just about almost half the building is our office space. I have a service coordinator, our accountants here in the building with us, a salesman, and then the rear portion of the building, we have a small superintendent's office, and then vehicle storage and small material storage. We also have a sheet metal shop that runs probably 30% of the time, manufacturing or fabricating our steel trim, for our jobs.
And so so the rear of the building has several large bays that
Yes,
you
5 bays.
take vehicles in and out, and you take materials in and out?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And the asphalt and gravel area in the rear that is the contractor's yard that we're here for today as well, what is stored out there?
So we have a couple larger vehicles. We have a boom truck, a box truck, 3 dump trucks that we keep out back. Every once in a while, we have a small overflow of materials left over from a job that'll come back here, be stored for a short period of time, and then they'll go to the next job or be returned to the actual supplier. So it's kind of revolving, but we keep it very clean. Being in the military, I'm somewhat OCD, so we try to keep the parking area and the parking lot pretty tidy.
And Mr. Gray, can I ask, we submitted the exhibits before the hearing. Do all the board members have access to those exhibits?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. We have numerous photographs that we've attached to show the different views of the building, the views of the contractor's yard, the views from the contractor's yard to the adjacent residential properties that show the screening. and also the contractor's yard showing what materials are stored there. Mr. Dreyer, do those pictures adequately represent how your facility looks and how you operate it?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. So you have how many vehicles on site on a daily basis?
You mean parked on site or in and out?
Parked on site.
So parked on site, I guess at the most we have probably 13 to 14 vehicles, like company vehicles. There's not a whole lot of traffic in and out of here. We do have a majority of vehicles that leave every day with our crews and our drivers. So I guess at any given time, the most would probably be around 13.
And that includes a boom truck, a box truck, 8 pickup trucks, and 3 dump trucks?
Yes.
Okay. Do you repair those vehicles or your equipment on site?
No.
So you use an outside service to repair and maintain?
Yes, they go. We take it, actually, we use a local mechanic here in town, Barnes Service Center.
Excellent. And you are the manager of both the contractor's yard and the building as well, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
How do you maintain the non-paved areas that have grass?
Oh, we have a landscaper that comes once a week.
Excellent. And so you keep them mowed and they take care of the plantings as well as the
He
grass?
does. Yes, sir. He does everything from mowing to all the landscape, mulch and hardscapes. He also, the same landscaper, does the surrounding buildings, one in front of us and then one directly across the street also.
Excellent. Does your operation produce noise or dust in the rear contractor's yard or in the building?
No, no, sir.
Do you do anything that emanates off of the property that would be a nuisance to the adjacent properties?
No.
Now, when you have equipment that becomes non-functional or scraps or waste on your property, how is it disposed of?
So we have one on-site dumpster that we own. And we have one on-site recycling dumpster for any residual metal waste and recycling.
Excellent. And what are your hours of operation?
So the building's open. We have the front office. The girls are here between 8 and 4. But the building, the property itself, you're going to see people starting around 6 a.m. And then around 4 p.m. is when, unless somebody's straggling on a job, that's basically 6 to 4 is our main hours of operation.
And that's Monday through Friday?
Yes.
Do you occasionally have people there on weekends?
Occasionally, but it's few and far between, normally on emergency response stuff.
Okay. And what's the greatest number of staff you typically have on site at any given time?
The greatest amount at any given time at this moment would be about 17.
Okay. And what's typically on site?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How many do you typically have on site at any given time during the day?
During the day. I'm sorry. I think there's 6 or 7 that are here during the day. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
No problem. And is it safe to say you have 20 to 30 vehicle trips in and out of the site on a daily basis?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel that the access allows your vehicles to safely enter and exit the property?
Yes.
Have you had any issues with the access to the property?
No issues. It's actually quite open, and we're the last somewhat building on this end of the road, so it's pretty open, and we don't have any blind spots.
Do you store gasoline on site?
No fuel stations.
Do you have security at the site?
Yes, sir. Yes, we have 13 security cameras. We also have keyless entry I guess like magnetic door scanners that also track who's in and out of the building at what times.
Excellent. Or do you have plans to change the existing lighting at the property?
No.
And what is the lighting?
I guess we have a couple outdoor rear lighting for the parking lot. You talking inside also?
No, just outside.
Okay, yeah, sorry. No, we don't have any parking lot poles. We just have I guess decorative like residential front lighting over the doorways and the front entrance, and then the rear has a couple halogen lights shining down towards the parking lot.
What's the height of your building?
I guess at the peak we're talking 26 feet, 25 to 26 feet.
Excellent. And what makes this site attractive for your use?
So I guess when we first built here, we liked that it was local, Carroll County, and it seemed like a good fit to I guess store. Oh, did I lose somebody? Okay. I think that we just like being close to the industrial park because it seemed like it would fit better for us to be able to store our materials and run a business.
And your property is actually a part of that industrial park, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Dreyer. Does the board have questions for Mr. Dreyer?
I do not have any questions, but as a career veteran, Army veteran, I want to thank the service in the Marine Corps. Hoorah!
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thanks for your service also.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call Rick Stouffer.
Yes.
Mr. Stouffer, what is your occupation?
Professional land surveyor.
And how many years have you been in the industry?
38. I was licensed in 2005.
And can you estimate how many site plans you've prepared in your career?
Hundreds, at least 100 or so.
And we have submitted Mr. Stouffer's CV as an exhibit before the hearing. I'd like to offer him as an expert in surveying, site plan preparation, and land use.
I have read that CV and I accept as noted.
Thank you. Mr. Stouffer, I'd like to walk through the site plan that you prepared for this submission. We've discussed the acreage is 2.03 acres, correct?
Correct.
And it's zoned IR, restricted industrial?
Correct.
And it is bordered by 2 roads, correct?
Yes, Magna Way and Old Bockton Valley Road.
And its access is onto Magna Way.
Correct. Using an access easement from the property to Magna Way.
And is it fair to say the surrounding properties are either zoned IR or residential?
Yes.
So I'd like to go through your measurements where the adjacent properties that we're most concerned about were the residential properties that are on the, I guess it's the eastern side across Old Bachman's Valley Road. What is the shortest distance to an adjacent parcel?
To an adjacent parcel will be 84 feet from the contractor's yard to the farm lot, which is not residential, but it's the closest point to another property.
And is it fair to say that if you were to actually take the required 300-foot setback from that property, it would render this property unusable for a contractor's yard or material sales?
300 feet to a residential lot or to the farm lot?
To the farm lot.
Yes, to the farm lot.
The distance actually to the off-site houses, am I correct to say that it's over 250 feet to the actual residence, to the closest residence?
For the residential zone, I think it's 385 feet from the contractor's yard to
Okay.
the house. To the actual property corner, I guess the closest point from the contractor's yard would be about 193 feet.
Got it. And do you, switching to the access, do you feel that the access on the Magna Way is adequate for this type of business on a lot like this?
Yes.
The photos that we've entered as exhibits, were they taken at your direction?
Yes, by my staff.
And do they adequately, do you think they accurately represent the condition of the property and the sight lines to the residential properties, including the screening thereof?
Yes.
I'd like to go through the zoning regulations and what we're seeking here today, starting with the special exception.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, somebody.
I'm just saying, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Do you believe that this proposed special exception meets all the requirements set forth in the zoning code?
Yes.
And do you believe there's adequate screening to shield the adjacent residential properties?
Yeah, there's a good amount of trees there to block. I mean, I'm not exactly sure 100% what it would be, but I mean, in my opinion, yes.
Excellent. Do you think there's a number of criteria, the orderly growth of the community in the IR zone? Do you think that this property meets that standard?
Yes.
And the traffic conditions and facilities, given the limited trips that were testified to, do you think there's adequate entry and sight lines?
Yes.
The effect on the peaceful enjoyment by the adjacent properties, we discussed the distance and the screening. Do you think it is adequate to meet that criteria?
Yes.
Do you think it achieves the conservation of property values, having minimal impact on the adjacent properties?
Yeah.
The effects of odors, dust, gas, smoke, fumes, vibrations, glare, etc. Do you believe the impact will be minimal on the adjacent properties?
Yes, we didn't experience any of that while our staff was on site.
Do you, addressing the most appropriate use of land and structures, this is an IR zone, given the operation, do you think that that's an optimal use for that property in that zone?
Yes.
Public convenience and necessity. You've heard testimony about the company and what they do. Do you think that it's a valuable addition to the community?
Yes.
And there's a criteria about adjacent properties such as schools and gatherings, but I believe that's inapplicable. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And do you think it's compatible with the community at large?
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to discuss the variance that we're seeking, which is a variance of the required 300 feet. So we're seeking to establish the 94 feet in lieu of the 300 required.
Can I ask a question first, Mr. Breeden?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, please.
And maybe Mr. Stoker needs to be on this because I'm looking at his drawing, his site plan. And the measurement that's made, the 255 feet from the back corner of the lot, cross Bachman Valley Road and going out to what's marked on the diagram as 119. What structure or what is that reference to between the picture and the site plan?
So the 255-foot dimension is from the closest corner of the contractor's yard to the curtilage of the farm property, which is the same zone as what the subject property is. But that would be, and that structure is actually a barn where I believe they do, there's some form of like furniture
Custom
repair,
cabinet.
I'm not exactly sure what they do there, but it isn't a house. It's actually it looks like an old barn that's been converted to some form of use that would be a commercial type of use.
Okay, I mean, the barn is marked separately.
Well, it's two separate barns. That house, the number is the address of the house that sits on the property, but that where the number 119 is not the actual house that is on the property. That piece of property is a much larger piece.
Mr. Kramer, if you look at Exhibit 19 C7, it actually gives you a pretty good picture of what's on that site. There are several barns and silos, and there is a house tucked in there as well.
I've looked at all those. I was just trying to correlate because that is the largest distance, and I'm just wondering what that was referenced to. If it could be identified, that's all.
Yeah, it was basically the shortest distance from the contractor's yard to any physical building across Bachman's Valley Road.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions about the special exceptions?
I have none. The board members have any?
Excellent. I will move on to the variance. Mr. Stouffer, in order to grant a variance, the board is to consider several factors, and they must determine, is there an exceptional or extraordinary circumstance or condition that applies to this property that does not apply generally to other properties in the same classification or zone? And you've discussed the setback requirements and how it plays out on this lot. Do you believe that that is an exceptional, extraordinary circumstance?
Yeah.
And one of the other criteria is for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property rights possessed by properties in that zone. Achieving this variance would allow one of the permitted uses to operate in this zone, correct?
Yes.
And based on the testimony you've heard and your visits to the site, do you believe that authorizing this variance would not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent properties and would not materially impair the purpose of this provision of the code or the public interest?
Yeah, we haven't noticed anything that would interfere with the neighboring lots. Noise, odor, smoke, and nothing.
Thank you. I have no further questions for Mr. Stouffer. Does anyone have questions for him? I would like to move in to evidence the exhibits that we presented with our pretrial statement, including the site plan and our pretrial statement.
And Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry, I guess you didn't hear me. I find them acceptable.
And Mr. Chair, would that be exhibit number 5 for the record?
Let me be clear. Yeah, I think that's where we are.
Okay.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but could you go through, Mr. Gray, what the exhibits are so we're clear when we write the decision?
Yes, yes. Exhibit 1 is the application. Exhibit 2 is the staff report. Exhibit 3 is the supplemental report. Exhibit 4 is the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Exhibit 5 would be what Mr. Briza it asked the board to introduce as exhibit.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
And Mr. Gray, if I could ask, I know an email was sent from one of the neighbors directly to you, and I was copied on it. We would like to enter that email as Exhibit 6, if possible.
And maybe this is a question, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
This is maybe a question for Ms. Ruff. Would you like me to screen share the email for the record for everyone, for the board members to all see before it's
Yes, yes, everybody should have seen it.
Let me pull that up.
And while you're doing that, may I ask a question? When you look at the application, it says to reduce the distance from 300 feet to 190 feet. But I believe the testimony was that it was to reduce it from 300 to 84 feet. Could somebody please just clarify that?
And my apologies if we misstated that on the application. I did not see that. It is in fact to reduce it from the required 300 feet to 84 feet, which is the nearest residential parcel. Yeah, we had it reducing from 300 to 190, but after reviewing with Mr. Gray and the staff, we agreed that it should be reduced to 84 feet, which is the closest property line.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you for clarifying.
I will share my screen now. Mr. Chair, did you want me to read this into the record, or would you like to?
Please do, because I can't.
Okay. Okay, sirs, and this is from Kenny Mitchell on 8/2/2021 at 6:09 p.m. Sirs, I am an adjoining property owner at the subject, or sorry, I am an adjoining property owner to the subject lot 21C. I am in the Johnson Professional Building at 21A. We run a primary care medical practice out of this building. Our employee parking and entrance plus COVID patient testing is done on the face of our building next to the site in question. Over the years, the current property owners have been nothing but the best neighbors. They present no objectionable view and do not make any noise to be detected. I would like to state for the record that Tri-County Roofing and Sheet Metal has been a completely unobtrusive neighbor and appears to be a very productive member of the community. If my ascension to these facts will help their case, I would like to present them at the hearing on Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. Regards, H. Kenneth Mitchell, member JFM Ventures LLC, 41 Magna Way, Suite 100, Westminster, Maryland, 21157 and 301-908-3436.
I'd like
And so that will be
I am
exhibit
here
6.
if I need to speak to that. I'm in the box that says Kim Johnston Del Tuba. She's the other owner of the property that's 21A.
And thank you for appearing,
Okay.
Mr. Mitchell. I apologize. I did not recognize the name.
Yeah, I'm not in my office.
Understood. And thank you for appearing here today.
Glad to help if I can.
Does the board have questions for Mr. Mitchell?
I do not know.
I don't.
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. That is all the evidence that we would like to present. Happy to do summation unless there are questions from the board.
I have maybe it's a silly question for this, but after all these years, how did you find, were you trying to do something that it just came up now that you are?
and I will take the blame for this. It came up as part of the transition from first generation to second generation in the
You're
business.
welcome, Kyle.
And we have looked in depth to see if we could find the documentation, but with transitions of the municipality and with transitions of the business, nobody could find the original paperwork. So, you know, we wanted to seek the approvals to obviously comply with the statute.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
And that was an excellent question.
I was waiting for, you know, we're going to expand, we're going to do this, but I wasn't sure how it came up.
We're keeping the use the same as it's been. No changes planned. It's really just trying to get the approvals that should have been done originally with the construction plans. So thank you, everyone. Tri-County Roofing and Sheet Metal, I believe to be a benefit to the community. They're locally owned, locally operated, and employ people from the community. They're well respected. And as you can imagine, I spend a lot of time in contractors' yards. I can say myself, they have one of the cleanest and best maintained sites I've ever seen. Our special exception requests, if weren't clear, are for building and materials sales and storage inside the structure, and for a contractor's equipment and storage yard in the rear in the open space. And also a variance, as we've discussed, for the distance to the adjacent residential lots. I believe our submissions are consistent with the purpose of the zoning ordinance. They're appropriate in light of the factors to be considered for the special exceptions and the variance. I think it's clear that they will not unduly impact the adjacent properties. There's almost no nuisance associated with their operation. And I think they are a value to the community and a value to the public interest of the industrial park and the community at large. Based on the location of the site, the screening, the length of time they've been there, we do not believe it would generate any adverse effects to those residential properties that are adjacent. And we respectfully request that the board approve both special exception applications and the requested variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
From my perspective, does the board have any additional questions?
I
I do
don't.
not. I do not.
Does the city have anything to add at this point?
No, sir.
Then we will officially close testimony and move to board discussion. Do we have discussion?
I don't think there's anything additional from the photos. It looks like it's a well-maintained, you know, we all probably know the area pretty well maintained, and there is significant trees, I believe, as Mr. Stauffer had mentioned, surrounding it. So I have no additional discussion.
Yeah, I agree with Brenda. You know, I had the question on line too, how it came up that it, you know, the issue came up kind of so late, and, you know, you satisfied my curiosity on that, so I'm fine. Thanks.
The only thing I guess I would add, a couple of things. The manner in which this was presented, the detail in the pre-hearing statement, and going through basically all of the criteria. I've been on this board since 2004. This is probably one of the best presentations I think I can recall. But I am getting older, so don't hold me to that.
Thank you.
And I think you've met all the criteria. With that in mind, I'll ask if there is a motion, or I would make a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the application and approve the variance.
I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Now, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Now that you have a motion on the table, there should be some discussion. I understand everybody thinks that it was a good presentation, but there should be some reference to the sections of the code and the criteria and that it was met. For the special exceptions, remember there's 2 special exceptions and the variance as well.
Okay. Brenda, since you made the motion, do you want to do this?
I will try. I'm not sure. I to approve the variance of from going from 300 feet to 84 feet. And what was the additional thing, Ms. Ruff?
Making reference to each of the criteria that are required to meet special exception.
Each of the 15?
Yes. And to the extent that they were in fact addressed in the testimony.
All of the criteria in order to approve a variance have been addressed adequately per Mr. Bryce's testimony and the property owner's conversations.
That's what's a special exception.
I'm sorry, what, Ed?
And the special exception.
And add the special exception.
Okay.
Did I get it?
Do we need to clarify that, Ms. Ruff?
Well, as we have discussed, my computer is jumping around, so I'm trying to get to the sections of the code that you're required to consider in order to approve the special exception.
The section 164.54, building and material sales and storage yard, which is enclosed, and section 164-54C, contractors equipment and storage yard.
And so if you look at the factors for consideration of the approval of special exception, those with respect to the orderly growth of the community, the traffic conditions, there's 15 items. I think you can make an affirmative statement that after considering the testimony that was presented, that you find that granting the special exceptions comply with all of the 15 criteria as set forth in those sections.
Do I have to repeat that?
What she said.
I was going to say that's what she said. So, that the testimony presented complies with the 15 requirements for the Board of Zoning Appeals to approve the variance for section 164-54A and section 164-54C.
Second. That was easier.
Aye. Did I hear everyone?
Yeah. I second it.
And we have all in favor, correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
So approved. Do we have any business before the board? I don't know of any. So I guess it's approved. Your application is approved. And again, good job. And you'll be hearing from, we'll get a formal response back to you within, Karen, 30 days.
Mr. Chair, I will do my best. I'm on vacation from the 7th to the 14th, but I will try to get it out the week of the 16th, I promise.
Okay, that sounds really good.
Thank you.
So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We
Thank
really
you.
Thank you,
appreciate it.
everyone.